religion today, unfortunately, is playing a significant role in the world of terrorism. And not only in Islam, we've seen this in Judaism, we've seen that in Christianity. On the other hand, there's no doubt that radical fundamental Muslim groups, may they be Sunni or Shiite, are spearheading this phenomenon. I think it's very important to remember that, and that's very important to Western viewers who lived in states that historically evolved with separation between church and state, who don't take religion seriously, or they do take religion seriously as a positive thing. A nice sermon given by an imam on Friday, a rabbi on Shabbat, or a priest on Sunday. But there are many people in other parts of the world who don't hold that view. They take their religions very seriously. And there was never any contradiction between religion and politics. If you take Islam, for example, since the days of the famous caliphates, this longing for the caliphate by Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State is no coincidence, because the caliph itself embodied in him the polity and the religious side as well. There was no contradiction. But why go far? Look at the United States, the Christian coalition, the Christian right. More than 70 million of them. They brought 3 presidents to be elected in the U.S. Reagan, Bush the father, Bush the son. And they're very much involved, the moral majority and other groups, in American politics. So there's no contradiction between religion and politics in positive manners, but also negative manners. And what we're witnessing today, the comeback of radical fundamental religious violence, doesn't surprise me, because it never disappeared. Of course, there are certain historical circumstances in each country, and each religion has to try to understand why it's happening to them or what. But in the end of the day, I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, what's been going on in the Muslim world in the past, I would say, 40 decades, maybe has a unique aspect. One has to look at the difference between Jewish and Christian history versus Muslim history. Despite the upheavals of modernity and secularization and the era of Enlightenment and French and American revolutions, religious Jews and Christians found a way to create a balance, sort of an equilibrium, between their religiosity and the modern state. It's been going on for more than 400 years. And also Christianity went through horrendous religious wars, and Judaism went through a terrible shock, but came out of this, more or less standing on their feet. Islam has only started that process in 1945. And if you talk about a society which most of it is a clan tribal society, it's very hard. The accelerated change in the modern society makes it very hard for any conservative traditional society to adopt. That's why you see all the cracks and all the... it's happening today in the Arab Spring, for example, as you can still call this a spring, is a titanic clash within inside Islam between 2 different parts, moderates, which are the majority, and radicals, which are not. But they're colliding. And we cannot determine yet where this is going to lead us, where we're going. We don't know. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a fly on the back of an elephant. If you look at the huge changes taking place today in the Middle East. Let's take 2 opposite scenarios. Let's say tomorrow there's an everlasting peace, and Bibi and Abu Mazen shake hands and have a jacuzzi together. Will that prevent Iran from its motivation of getting a nuclear bomb? Would that stop the Islamic State? Would that stop global jihad? Would that make Hamas more content? I mean, it's nonsense. At the end of the day, everything's going to go as usual. Let's take the opposite. Israel, God forbid, is wiped out. Will that change the Iranian race for the bomb? Will that change global jihad or any of the others? They'll put it there, and they're going to go on. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is totally blown out of proportion. It's important for us, Israelis, Jews, it's important for the Palestinians. But if you look at the macro-level changes taking place in the Middle East today, in the Arab world, it wouldn't make a difference here or there. And I know that there are people who try to blame everything on that, but they simply don't understand what's going on. These are huge transitory changes that are actually revolutionizing the Arab world. The fall of Syria has anything to do, disintegration of Syria has anything to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Disintegration of Libya has anything to do with the Israeli-Arab conflict. Yemen, Iraq, there's no connection whatsoever. It's sometimes very convenient for certain people with certain political views to cling to this, or to advocate this line of argument, which I think is totally irrelevant to what's going on. It shows a lot of lack of understanding and ignorance about the big picture. Truth is, by the way, when young Egyptian students were demonstrating several years ago at the Tahrir Square in Cairo, when the Arab Spring began, CNN came to interview. And they asked, well, what about Israel? What about? They said, we don't care about it. It's not the issue here. It's the dictatorship, the corrupted regimes, the abuse of women. They were talking about the real problems of the Arab world. And the Jews were not to blame, which is something new. I mean, it was very easy to channel everything against Israel. But the truth is, and I think every Arab and every Muslim knows this today, 99% of the problems are self-made, are their own problems. Outing is a very convenient thing to do psychologically, but that's going to solve their problems, if Israel is there or Israel is not there. So no, in the end of the day, one should take the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the right proportions and look at the big picture of what's happening. And what we're seeing, the big picture, is the comeback of religion to politics and a mega war within inside Islam between Muslims. Jews and Christians don't count in this, and only Muslims will determine in which direction this is going. Well, I think all governments, including the Australian government, who deal with this challenge today, although each country has its unique challenges, should have, I would say, a multiple strategic approach. First of all, whatever we can do on the level of de-radicalization and preventing people from getting there on the educational level, bringing moderate imams, in the case of radical Islam, doing whatever we can peacefully in order to prevent this. But we also have to understand, not to be naive, that doesn't solve all the problems. What about those who cross the line? What about those who commit terrorism? So a government in this case, and that's what's happening today in Europe, that's what Israel is doing. On one hand, you have the positive educational de-radicalization tool, but on the other side, you have to have very good, high qualified CT units to deal with things like the Lind Cafe, or a bus that blows up in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, or somebody decides to take an airplane and run down a building in New York. We also have to be prepared for that, and I think it's very important to keep in mind that democracy's first obligation, alongside human rights, minorities, and all the beautiful things we believe in, is to defend its citizens. No, people tend to forget that. Democracy is allowed and must defend its citizens. And unfortunately, in the war with terrorists, we also have to do that. Coming from Israel, I think I know very well what I'm talking about.